I think if you listen to that panel, you would have derived so many key leadership lessons. But even as I sat there as a moderator, I think one thing that came out was very clearly adaptability. And that's what I call the A. You know, they didn't have the playbook, they didn't go by previous lessons, but their experience have taught them how to adapt. And I think that is something which I've seen loud and clear. The second letter I will use is B for bold. I think they were so bold because everyone had fears, everyone at the ground are fearful, but you know, Prof JJ, Prof Gabriel, everyone says we need to assure the team that we have priority in their safety. And so we must all build courage together. So bold doesn't mean recklessness, but bold is being bold enough to make decisions. A third variable which I see coming across is C for collaborative. All of them are collaborative leaders. I think they also recognize that this pandemic is so much bigger than the whole of mankind could have done and grapple with on their own. So I love the idea that everyone is so humble. They know they don't have all the answers, but coming together as a community, that's another C, coming together and collaborating and sharing the knowledge. I think that will allow us to help fight this. And then, of course, the last is the D. The D to me is the doer. I think you cannot talk about leadership sitting on your pedestal. You have to be at the trenches, down at the ground. And that came across. All four leaders says we have to be at the ground. We have to be with our people and we have to learn from each other. I love it that Jonathan says we can learn from the 15 to the 28. We can learn from the 25 to the 35. And he wants to open up his network to all the younger leaders to come so that they could, you know, share the resources, learn all the lessons now, and not wait until they are 50-year-old. So I think this generosity amongst all the leaders actually came across. And, you know, the pandemic is terrible. We wouldn't want to see something like this. But through the pandemic, we have seen some jewels. We have seen some goodness, and it is the goodness of the humankind. And I think this is why I'm so amazed. I would love to have the four leaders again, you know, for a conversation like this. That's a big question. Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of leaders are actually sitting down and thinking about it. I think the one that Professor Gabriel Leong actually put out there, the inequality in our world. I think the big social economic shift is we have actually grown in many countries with a huge gap in the inequality. And so I think this post-pandemic world cannot survive if we don't look after the bottom 20%. So we have to start closing the gap. We may have to look at economic policies that will lead to minimum wage rates. We may have to look at universal health care policies. We may have to ask ourselves, how do we make sure that the people who benefit from growth could transfer some of their wealth to those who have not benefited? So this is one big wake-up call. I think the second big economic shift will be towards a community-led understanding of effects and policies. And I think that's what Yoran was trying to share. Yoran's trying to share that, you know, it's no longer everyone knows about what the future world will look like. But everyone should have empathy, a perspective, whether you are a consumer, whether you are an employee, whether you are an employer. Every part of the society must come together to build a more sustainable world. So I think in the post-pandemic world, we will reimagine better as a community and as a society on how to make sure that everyone has a meaningful, purposeful life. And that's in the agenda.